Good evening, studio nerds. And for the next month, I'm going to bestow upon you some knowledge that is actually worth more than gold. We are going to go over a series of myself recording a song from beginning to end using no templates, using no presets of any kind, just kind of doing it raw doggy style and starting fresh. So you could see right from the beginning perspective of when you open up a session in your DAW, recording a track, setting our automations, mixing, mastering, and getting it into a final product. In which case you can set it as a template, and you can just use the template to go ahead and record any of your future projects. So the idea here is, I'm going to be using GGD drum samples for the drums. We're going to go over that topic first, set up your drum mapping and set up your drum channels. That way in the future you can go ahead and lay down drum tracks and it'll be separated into different channels. I think for guitars, I'm going to do a mix of my newly acquired Quad Cortex, which is actually right over there, that little baby right there. We're going to be using that, and I'll use a mix of plugins as well. That way we can get the best of both worlds and we can experiment and see, what sounds better or what application works best. And for the bass, we'll be using the GGD Nolly Bass Library as well. So again, these aren't very expensive. These are very affordable acquisitions you can get to go ahead and start making quality music in the comfort of your own home. In the comfort of your own home. Take it easy. Breathe. Anyway, I'm going to try to use as much in-box plugins as possible. I'm most likely going to use some third-party plugins that I believe every mixer or master artist should own, such as like the Fab Filter bundle and maybe even some Wave stuff, especially for their compressors. But as much as I can humanly possible, I'll try to use it in-box plugins as well, meaning I'll use the stuff in Ableton, or I can even just, whatever I use as a third-party plugin, you guys can go ahead and just apply the same principles into the stock plugins as well. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move it over to Ableton over here. This is actually a very fresh project. Whenever you open it, you're going to see that there are 2 audio channels already open and 2 MIDI channels open. So what I'll do first is let's go ahead and delete these first 3 tracks right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put Kontakt 7 on this MIDI channel, which, by the way, if you haven't, go ahead and download Kontakt 7 if you do already own your GGD libraries, because you're going to need Kontakt 7 to run those babies. Okay, slap it on there. Let it load. Okay, and in my previous sessions, I was always using Invasion over here, but I think I'm going to go ahead and use my newly acquired Modern Massive library, which I haven't even tried yet. So we'll go ahead and give this one a shot. Okay, and as soon as you open the sampler, the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to make sure you can view your output channels here, which is going to be really important. So Kontakt 7 is slightly different in terms of the layout of the previous Kontakt iterations. So I think you have to go to View over here, and by default it's not going to show it, so you got to go Rack View, and this already is a little more familiar to Kontakt users here. Then once you go to View again, then you'll see a lot more options pop up. The main one we need right here is Outputs. Okay, now disregard everything I have here because I have already set it, but we'll go ahead and start fresh. And you should also do this too. And what you should do is go to Factory Settings over here and go to Stereo 16. Okay, so this is gonna be a fresh new output section for Kontakt. Okay, and the very first thing we'll do is let's go ahead and analyze the different sections we have of our drum sampler here. So we have the kick, snare, toms, and cymbals. So when you're looking at the kick, you'll see that we have different categories here for the kick. So we'll have kick sum, kick sub. This is the overhead. I forgot what LDC meant. I think it's lower density compressor mic. And I think that's the overhead standard density compressor mic. I could be wrong, but you can look it up. But we'll just consider these as 2 overheads. And then we got a room mono, room close, and room 4. And what you'll see if you go to the snare section here, it's kind of the same deal. Where you'll have 2 different snares, a snare top, snare bottom, and you could control the snare going into the overheads for the LDC and the SDC, and you can also control the snare bleeding into the rooms. And then for the toms, same deal here. We have 3 different toms, and we have the overheads here, rooms, cymbals, same deal, hi-hats, ride, overheads, and room. So we're already seeing that every channel here does have 2 overheads and 3 rooms. So we got to keep that in mind when we're doing our naming convention here. So first things first, I'll go ahead and start naming my outputs. And first things first, we're going to go ahead and match whatever we're seeing here with over here. So I'm going to do kick sub. For output 2, I'll do kick sub. Okay. Now we're going to skip the overheads for now because I want to put these later on. So what we'll do is we'll go to snare. And for output 3, we'll do snare top, snare bottom. Okay. And what I ideally would like for the next 3 channels would be my toms. So I'll go ahead and put in rack tom there. I don't think I spelled it right, because occasionally the stupid cells in my brain will kick in. Thankfully, not all the time. Okay. Whoop, again, see? There, I'm just so excited about the toms that I just can't spell them right. Flipboard tom, see? Oh, and you know what? We should definitely put a number 1, because that's how it is over here. Floor tom 1, floor tom 2. And yes, I know I didn't use a caps lock over here. You guys can go ahead and free to do so if you want to, but I think I'm going to be okay with living with the regular standard capitalization. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, I'll go ahead and put these next 2 symbols on their own channels as well. So I'll put hats and ride. Okay, and then now I can go ahead and put these last 5 sections in the later channels. So I'll do overhead LDC, and I'll do overhead SDC. Okay, brilliant. Room mono, room close, and last but not least, room far. Okay, and we have done it, and I can already tell that we, out of these 16 channels we created, we only used 14 of them. Okay. Okay, so now that that's done, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead over here, and we are going to save the current output section state as default for all formats. Now what that's going to do is if you open up Kontakt on its own, you know, as its own little program, or if you open this anywhere else, this output configuration will save everywhere else. So you don't have to worry about redoing it again and again. So we'll go all formats, and boom, it is saved. Okay. Next thing we want to do is, starting from the kick section here, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and assign all these outputs to whatever channels these are right here. Now, previously in the other Kontakt versions, what you had to do was go ahead and close it and reopen it. That way, the naming conventions can show up over here. But I don't believe you have to do that anymore with this version of Kontakt. If you're not seeing it pop up, just go ahead and go into your channel, close down the plugin, and reopen it, and it should be okay. Yeah, I'm just realizing now that there could be a chance it's still there from the last time I did this, just to test and see if it worked, if my methodologies are proven to be useful. Okay. Once you got that going, go ahead and start assigning whatever you're seeing to the proper channels. So kick sum goes to kick sum, kick sub to kick sub, and these we're going to send it to whatever it's designated to. So the overhead LDC, and overhead SDC, and room mono, room close, room far. Okay, and we're just going to go ahead and do this for every single subcategory. So give me 1 second. Okay, and don't be shy as I do this. If you guys know any better ways of doing this, just put in the comments and we'll talk about it in the next video. Okay, almost done. Hats, ride, overhead SDC, room mono, room close, room far. Okay, and that's it. And here's another step that I don't think you have to do anymore, as opposed to the previous versions of Kontakt. Before, you just have to come down here and set the outputs of each one to whatever it's designated to. Kick sum 1, kick sum 2. And the only reason why you have to do it twice is because there's a stereo channel, so you have to do left and right. But I believe in the new version, it already does it for you. So you don't have to go and reset all these anymore. It automatically does it for you, which is really cool. Okay, so now that that's done, we can go ahead and close this. And you know what? Just to test and see, if you go to full kit and hit the kick, you can definitely hear the kick. But the snare, you're not able to hear it, and you're asking yourself, well, how come? It's because we haven't set the audio channels for these just yet. So that's the next thing we're going to do. So we know there's 14 channels, right? So what we'll do over here, you could do Control T on PC, or I think it's Command T on Mac, but you can do that 14 times. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Cool. Okay. And now the only other thing you have to do is go ahead and go into the mix view, which I think you can hit tab on your keyboard and you'll go into this menu right here. So the next thing we have to do is we have to assign these channels to receive in the audio from GGD drum sampler. So the best way to do that is you go hit the top of the channel right here, hold shift, and go to the very last channel. And the audio from section here, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and push that in and go Kontakt 7. Okay, now you don't want to highlight these anymore because you have to do it individually. You can go ahead and unhighlight them. And now, one by one, we will go ahead and assign the audio of what it's going to receive. Now, as you can see, kick sum is not in here, and for some reason, by default, kick sum goes into your MIDI channel over here. So your kick sum is going to go to this channel no matter what. And so what we'll do, we'll go here. We'll go kick sub, snare top, snare bottom, rack tom, floor tom 2, hats, ride, overhead, lover of dick cuck, and overhead of suck dicker cuck, room mono, room close, and then loneliest of all, room far. Okay, so it turns out we actually don't need this channel, so we'll just go ahead and delete that. Okay, now very first thing you want to do before you do anything else, come into your drum sampler. Okay, go to the groove. And hopefully you have one. There should be something basic in here, hopefully. Just play a groove. Oh, another thing before I do that, sorry. Go ahead and re-highlight all these. And this is a good example because it shows that you can do it in here too. Set these to in for the monitoring. If you do off, you will not be able to hear what the channel is processing. So you go ahead and go on, in. Then we can unhighlight that, and now you should be able to hear everything coming in. Okay, if we go back to the mix view, you can see that everything is coming into its own channel. Okay, and the toms work, everything works. So what we can do now, yep, like I mentioned, there's the kick sum, that's the sub, that's the snare top, snare bottom. Okay, so clearly everything works. Let's go ahead and turn off the groove because it's going to get annoying after a while. Okay, very last step. All you have to do now is two more things. One, let's go ahead and rename all these tracks because organization is key when you're going down into the further end of tracking and mixing and whatnot. So we'll just go ahead and rename everything whatever it was. And if you need a reference, you can just see what the naming of it is here. And we know that this one is kick sub. Sorry, kick sub. The first one was kick sub. Okay, and this one is snare top. So go ahead and rename everything. And you're going to stick around while I do it, and you're just going to have to forcefully watch because I want you guys to see exactly what the process is. We're not going to skip any portions. We're not going to do any editing of the video unless I really need to if I screw up. But I will be as transparent as possible because I think you guys deserve it. Everyone needs a good tutorial for this crap because it can get confusing. A lot of things do get confusing down the road. You know, if this was easy, everybody would be doing it, but it's not easy. Hence why people don't do it. Hopefully they'll be paying you in the future to do this stuff for them. Okay. This is the ride or die. This is the overhead LDC. Overhead SDC. Okay, and this is the room. Which one was this? Room mono. Room mono. Room close, and then room far. Oops. Make sure you do it right. Don't rush it. Okay, that about does it. Okay, now, one thing I like to do is go ahead and highlight all the tracks, right click, and group the tracks. So now you have a organized group where all the drum tracks are contained into this group. And that's useful for one of two reasons. One, I can, if I ever want to collapse all the drums just so I can see all the other tracks, I can click at this little button right here and everything collapses and it's all tucked away in there and I can always access it whenever I feel like it. Two, if I want to collectively affect all these tracks, the way I can do that is throw it into the group and it'll affect every single track in the group as opposed to me having to go in each track and adding in a plugin or an effect. Okay, and the very last thing we have to do before we do a final test is highlight everything including the group and assign a color to it. I like to usually have all my stems, as we call it, and what a stem is basically a collection of an instrument group. So like drums, a drum stem would be a collection of all the cymbals, all the toms, all the snares, all the bass kicks, everything. So for this dedicated stem, I personally am going to keep it red. I feel like red is a good color for drums. I think the way I usually do it is I'll do yellow for bass. Guitars will be green or something, and you know, whatever you like. Or you can just, if you don't want to have it the same color, you don't have to. But I think it's a good way just to, you know, when you visually see it, you'll know, okay, red are drums. If I see a red thing, it's drums. So it's good to keep it organized like that. Okay, and the very last thing I'll show y'all, make sure everything is in, including the kick sum. So another reason why this is useful is, let's just say down the road, you know, we put in our MIDI information into the main drum track, which is actually right here. So for example, and I'm only going to assume it's the same in this version as it is in GGD Invasion. But let's just say I like one of these grooves. Okay, now here's the confusing thing. Is it here? It's here. So when you have a groove selected, you hit the load button. I think you hold on the left click and you can drag. No, it's not like that. Okay. So you have to hold on the left click on the export button and then you can drag and you'll get the MIDI information right here. So you can drag it anywhere. And you can go ahead and keep this one on auto. And for all the other tracks, what you can do is starting from here, if you go ahead and record enable, I think you can do it like this too. Let me try. Yeah, so you can record and enable all that with the in monitoring function enabled. And what'll happen is if you record it, it'll print all the audio into its own drum tracks here. Okay. And then you can just go ahead and, you know, if you have these set to in, okay, you could still hear it when it's set to in, so that's good. When you set it to off is when, oh no, you can still hear it in off. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay. Okay. But this is something you'll do down the road. You'll only print the drum tracks if you're done with writing. But generally, what I'll do is let's delete all these. You don't have to print the drums down immediately. You could just leave the MIDI here, and as you're working on your song, you can go in here and you can go ahead and work on your drum tracks in here. And then once you have the final, you know, you're happy with your drum parts, then you can print it if you'd like. That way it can be an audio track as opposed to a MIDI. Then again, if your computer is strong enough to handle it, you could just go ahead and, you know, put effects in here, put automation in here, and you don't have to print the tracks down to audio. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do now is we'll go ahead and save our session. I went ahead and titled it YouTube Song and 1/1/2024 to signify that's the first day of the year, even though today's the second. But this will be like our project for the next however long it takes for us to complete a song. And we'll go ahead and save it. Okay, and that's it for today. So let's keep it going. I'll go ahead and put this one up pretty soon. You guys can go ahead and check it out, and then we'll go ahead and start tracking some stuff. Maybe we'll work on guitar riffs and maybe putting some guitar riffs onto the track, and then we can write the drums after that. That's usually the way I tend to write, is I'll pick up the guitar, I'll start writing or jamming, and I'll see if a riff sticks. We'll go ahead and print the riff onto the DAW here. Then we can add the drums to afterwards. So, all right, cheers guys. See you in the next one.